God, everyone. It's Monday. We made it. It's all Midnight Horizon tonight. We got one piece of news. It's pretty cool. And then we're talking this amazing book that I love so much. I earnestly cannot wait to talk with you all. This is the highlight of my week. I'm so glad you're here. I'm with my guys. I'm with the crowd. Wes, I know it's raining tomorrow, but if you can summon up the courage, you punch it. Welcome to the Living Force, a Youtini Network podcast all about the High Republic most of the time. We're not even going to lie about it. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me tonight to talk about Midnight Horizon is the full cast of characters, starting off with Dr. Read the Name Tag, Corey Helton. What's up, buddy? You're here, you're on camera, Corey!
Beer! Oh, God, put it away! Hello, everyone. I don't have a drinking problem. You prove nothing. You can't prove anything.
It's Monday once a week, isn't it?
It's Monday
good to see you,
once
man.
a week. Thanks, man. Same to you, too. Welcome.
It's been about 4 weeks since I saw you last. It feels
It's
good,
something
feels
like
right. It especially feels right, though, because we're joined by the who knows if his shades will be up or down, Dr. Charles Henkel. They're up!
I'm a man of mystery. No one ever knows what's in my cup either. Have you ever noticed that? Maybe it's water. Maybe it's pimp juice. We don't know.
Wow, you threw me. I'm not going to lie, Charles. You did.
Yeah, segue that, Eric.
You know what? I can segue anything. Because if it weren't for Pimp Juice, we wouldn't have the strength to support the masterful, the disaster-ridden, the I hope you're safe enough, Wes Jenkins. You're okay? It's going to rain in Texas. Are you okay?
Evening. I got sent home early today because it started to rain. I work indoors, and... It floods
You're not
down
out on the field.
It floods in Houston, so once there's an inkling of rain, in the abundance of caution to make sure everybody is safe, they say go home before it starts flooding down the bayous. And if it rains all night long, you're not coming into work the next day. So
absolutely not.
Do all the dads in your business like go outside the front door and look at the sky like dramatically and
do this number right here? Do one of these.
Yeah, exactly. They cross their arms and look real serious and go,
gonna be bad.
I think it's coming.
It's hot today. Hot yesterday. Hot tomorrow.
Wes, I like to think that you get to work from home tomorrow as a reward for your city finally getting rid of Deshaun Watson. Congratulations.
Those idiots, they gave us 3 first-round picks.
You can't talk to me about draft pick trading. All right, Wes, I'm still very raw from my Amari Cooper 5th. Anyway, not the purpose of the episode. Hi, everyone in the chat. Hope you're having a good day. I see, JG in the chat is having an extraordinarily good day because you started reading Revenge of the Sith, Wes's favorite future book. Glad you're doing well. Hope some of you are washing dishes or have clean dishes. That's what I wish upon you. I think that's the most adult compliment I can wish. I wish you a sink of clean dishes. Anyway, if this is your first Living Force show, sorry. But you're here. This is our part 2 of our Midnight Horizon Roundtable. Pretty quickly on, we're going to dive into the overarching questions that Charles has come up with for us. That was a lot of horrible small words. And of course, the famous Easter eggs and a little surprise that we teased last week. But before that, we have one piece of news. It's been a hard week for a few of us in a few different ways, but sometimes hard weeks come with good news. And there's an email, nay, 2 emails that came into the Youtini email inbox. And Corey, what did the first one say?
Yeah. Well, we got 2 big emails this week, and the first one made me have an aneurysm at work. I literally fell over. I was with a patient, and I had to excuse myself.
Your work is the best place to have an aneurysm, though, I will say.
That's probably
all the
true.
places to have
probably
one.
true.
Yeah,
that's true. I got the notification on my Apple Watch, and I literally said, "Excuse me," and had to leave. Youtini got an invite to Celebration, guys. An
Let's go!
invite to Celebration.
Let's go! Specifically,
Yes.
though. Specifically. What kind of invite?
Specifically,
What happened?
to do a Youtini was invited to host a panel at Celebration,
Let's
all about
go!
Star Wars books and comics, baby.
Official
Yeah.
panel. Not just the podcast stage. This is not that. This is a panel for
Yes.
Youtini.
In a panel, like we're going to talk
Official.
all about the past, future, and let's see here. What is it? Past, present, and future. What
You
order
got
does
to
it
know
go in?
that by May, Corey.
No, that's true. That's true. I did write
got 2
it. I did
months.
write it. We are hosting a panel with the past, present, and future of Star Wars books and comics. We put a ton of work into our application process 2 years ago when they delayed Celebration, and luckily we got to revise some of that stuff and then resubmit this year. And it's just the craziest thing that's ever happened. We're going to host an official panel at Celebration. It's gonna be printed in like the pamphlets that everybody gets at the door. Like, it's an official panel. Some of the panels are live streamed. On the official Star Wars YouTube channel. I don't know if that will happen. That would be crazy if it did. But it depends when it is, right? I mean, if it's like that kind of the highlight panel, like at the time that it falls at, then it could be live streamed on the Star Wars channel.
During
and
the
that's just crazy.
Andor trailer, probably not. But if it's like 8 in the morning at 10 in the morning on Thursday, maybe.
If it's a slow time block, then I don't know, maybe we get it. But regardless, this has been like a life goal for me personally when I started Youtini, that like I really want to be at Celebration one day. I can't believe we hit this milestone. This was on like our 3-year objectives. Like I think
like a couple celebrations in.
Yeah, really, really can't believe it. It's just incredible. And then that's not it, right? So then we were all freaking out on the team because of this incredible news. About an hour later, I got a second email that said we had also been approved for the fan table, which is it's not as big of a deal, but it's a huge deal in a different way, because now Youtini has somewhat of a headquarters on the show floor at
Where we
Celebration.
can sit.
I know.
At
We can
any
sit
time.
and have a break. So officially, if you are going to Celebration, Star Wars Celebration, Anaheim, California in May 2022, come say hello to the Youtini crew at the fan table at Celebration. It's gonna be wild, guys. Absolutely wild. And we do have one more. We have one more application pending for a podcast stage, right? If that happens, then we'll put something together and have a live show, and maybe that'll happen. And at this rate, I don't know, maybe we'll get approved. Sky's the limit, I guess. So it's crazy.
Like,
crazy.
We are so beyond stoked, as Corey was saying, for all this. We have, like, multiple Slack channels have been created. Multiple things are being coordinated. We've told you all we're going to keep you posted about when we know things. When the panel is announced and time slot, we'll tell you. When we know anything about booth location, we'll obviously tell you. We want to see you at our booth and at our panels. We'll try to do things like giveaways, things like just freaking chatting with us. We'll talk about timelines. We'll talk about books. There'll be so many cool things. Now,
even if you're, the other thing I wanted to say is, even if you're not an attendee of Star Wars Celebration, we're going to do our absolute utter best to record everything that happens, right? So we can use it later, put it on YouTube later, run it on the Living Force later, so you can talk about what a crazy time it was. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We want it to be fun for folks that couldn't go to Celebration too, right? So we're gonna make an effort to it's fun to look back on video recordings anyway. So it's pretty wild. And we do have one other thing that we've hinted at, like in the past couple months, I think, like even last year when we talked about Celebration. Youtini's hosting a party too, guys. That's gonna be a big deal.
Venue is
there you go.
booked. Venue is Venue is booked for the party. That we can tell you right now.
Yeah, that we can tell you. I don't want to give away the venue yet because there's logistics that have to happen. But like we do have a venue booked. We're planning on hosting a party tentatively for Saturday night. Like 6 to 9-ish. I think it's 6:30, 9:30. It's pretty close to the convention center. So live party. We're going to do a live show if they'll let us, host equipment and, play sounds loudly and stuff, because this is an outdoor venue and I don't know what the rules will be. So we'll see. The plan is to do like a live show podcast and hang out, have some beer. It's going to be a good time. It's a big venue. We can have like, I think between 60 and 75 people, I'm pretty sure. So, we'll set up RSVPs and put all that stuff on the website and all that good stuff. So you guys won't miss out, but it'll be free too, just for the record. It'll be free to attend.
Yeah.
Drinks are on you, but free to attend.
Unless I'm really drunk and you say a nice thing to me. And drinks
Then
might
drinks
be on
are
me.
on Corey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a day unlike any other when we found this out, because as we've had with the days we found out, we had our reviews on the back of paperbacks. It's like this, that's similar to that when we got the Queen's Hope audio excerpt. Like it's just these things that show a love and respect for what we're trying to create here, and it all happens because you all like it and listen and go to the site, and like we had to put in the numbers of what people look at on these applications, and it was enough to prove that we are serious about what we do. And we hope, again, as Corey said, if it times out right, and please don't feel, I know this is weird to say up front, don't feel like you have to skip like the Andor introduction to come to our panel. We'd love it, but like don't like
do that. We'll record it. Watch that shit on YouTube later.
But we would love to see so many of you live as we can. We'd love to meet you at booths. All of us will be swagged out in Youtini stuff throughout the week, and it became a lot more real this week, and it's the hype that we needed. And thank you all. Charles, I'm gonna miss you so much. Just straight up, bro. I'm so sorry.
I know, but we were talking to before the show went live that I'm gonna try to be involved as like the guy left behind, the man left behind.
The man in the chair, bro. It's what you are. The guy in the chair.
I'm going to be the guy in the chair, and everyone who is at home, we will experience things together. We're going to make it work.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. So all of you, I see already in the chat, we have folks that are across the ocean that are in other countries that just can't make it because it's an expensive thing to go. That's totally fine.
Crazy.
You're going to have tons of Youtini folks in the same situation that'll be home because you can't upload crap live because the internet service isn't great. But we will have people back home talking to folks, having community events, and it's in 2 months, and I can't wait.
2
so
months. You guys have plane tickets and everything booked now, right? Everybody's all set up.
Yep. Going to Disneyland on Wednesday. A bunch of us. If you're going to Disneyland on the Wednesday before celebration, a bunch of us will be there. Just say hi. And if you want, or wave or whatever.
I've put aside $112 for Oga's Cantina. I'm gonna get
for the weekend.
I'm gonna get 3 total drinks. Dude, you
gotta get the Rancor Teeth flight.
Seen the prices. Holy moly! But so it's once in a lifetime experience, I guess.
Yeah,
probably not.
Yep. Yeah. Or as Youtini's hoping, in every single celebration experience. So thanks, y'all. We'll keep you posted, and Jaw's still kind of on the floor a little bit. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more about it as we get closer to the event, and as details come around, you guys will be sure to let folks know here. And if you are a listener and you're going to go to Celebration, then I don't know, hit us up, shoot us an email, tag us on Twitter, say hello, whatever. We'd love to meet you, come by and say hello, and it's going to be fun. We need to do some content on the podcast about Celebration because they do a lot of book exclusives and stuff. I don't know if they're doing anything this year. Interestingly, some of the printing delays have hurt things. It kind of seems like
I think we'll see what arrives in California. It will be what they release. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And let us know your suggestions on what we should go to for as a Star Wars cosplay.
Matt's in the chat. He said, finally a week off.
Not for you, buddy. We'll make something stupid.
Oh, that's a good point. Most of us are. When are you guys going? Are you going to be there like during Living Force? I don't know how we're going to make that work.
I'm home every Living Force, so I'll at least be here. Charles and I will do a show.
I'll be at Freddie's house, maybe.
Yeah.
We're touring some part of California.
Freddie has a literal live podcast set up that he does every Thursday.
It's true.
Let's look back.
It's true.
So
I'll dress up as Freddie. I'll put on one of his hats. He's got a lot of hats.
Oh my God, please.
Red Ranger helmet. Red Ranger helmet.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Sounds good.
We'll see you there. Again, all details forthcoming. Panel, we don't know. Booth announcements. Party. Save your money. If you see us, remind us to drink water if you can, because I'm going to forget, and I got a lot of talking to do, so it'll be a great time. Speaking of all of this, all the stuff we are doing at Celebration, very bluntly, is going to drain a lot of the Youtini coffers, and those exist because of our patrons.
Literally every dollar.
Yeah, like, we are going to go all out as much as we can, and I do not mean any kind of hyperbole with this. Our Patreon community, we thank you so much, because without you, we couldn't even have any thought of anything to do at Celebration.
For sure.
Regarding anything from booth setup to bookmarks to literally anything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want to join the community either before, after, during Celebration, whatever, go to patreon.com/Youtini. Get some exclusive content. Because because of the craziness of life, there have been things like our Avengers of the Sith commentary, which I will absolutely own because of my life is getting delayed. I'm sorry. We're going to get to that very soon. But you get extra stuff like Star Wars Archives right when it drops. You get things like the Ghost Crew when it drops. You get a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Thanks to Timothy, our Patreon manager, who is always in contact with our patrons, asking what you want to help Youtini get better. And I hope if you're able to either consume Celebration content or better yet, be there and see us in person, you will be able to see physically how much you as a community are helping us create a lot of amazing things and create some memories that are going to last with us for years. Thank you. We love you. Patreon.com/Youtini. I'm already getting sentimental, so you know it's going to be a hell of a round table. All right, last couple things. No other news this week from Star Wars. Thank you all blessedly for giving us a short week for Charles's Roundtable. But of course, there are still books coming out. April 5th is just around the corner, which means we are very close to Queen's Hope dropping on April 5th. Wave 3 of the Essential Legends Collection dropping on April 5th. And on May 10th, You Are My Brother, Anakin, in Brotherhood by Mike Chen. It's coming. We're almost there. Before Celebration, it's dropping. Get all those pre-orders in because of the supply chain issues. Go to youtini.com. Go to the release schedule. Thank you to Frank and Trev for all your work on that. Get the pre-orders in, read the books. All right. With that, we're going to take a break. Let some of this adrenaline even out a little bit. I'm still thinking about Celebration, y'all. And then we're going to come back, and we are going to talk all about a spoiler-filled conversation with Daniel Jose Older's High Republic Midnight Horizon. Be right back.
What a piece of junk.
It's the best back cover since Star Wars Episode 1 hardcover novelization. The one with young Anakin, because on the back, just to remind y'all, is a full headshot of Watto.
It's so big.
I think
so
I brought
large.
this up on one of the earliest episodes of the Living
my
Force
God, yeah.
ever, and I thought I'd bring it back.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Series and all of Legends. What do you guys think? Could it be the X-Wing series? Might just be the
It
most
was pretty
romance
steamy.
intensive series ever. And we're not just talking about the scene where Corran Horn describes his love affair with an otter. I mean, a Salonian that he hooked up with her and then he broke out in chives.
Yeah, not chives.
In
Not
chives.
chives.
What's it called? The bumps?
Hives, dude. Hives.
Chives
I'm so
go on your
sorry.
potato.
I'm hearing you say the same thing.
Chives what
What is-
you put on the under potato. No C. Hives.
Hives.
Not chives.
What'd I say?
Chives.
It's not a very common story to approach. Yeah, again, drawing the complex family tree of Django to clone identical son to clone all identical millions of sons, but they're a generation older. So then the son is kind of all Django's equal, but then Boba is a generation younger. But then that clone's son is Boba's age. But then is Boba his dad or his nephew or his uncle or his cousin? It's like.
Anyway, continue.
Oh, love that ad. Love our sister shows. Again, a reminder, Cosmic Force is hitting every Wednesday night. Legends Look Back is hitting every Thursday night. The best part about Legends Look Back is that you get to keep watching live until Emily eventually has her baby. And then when she's not on, you know what happened, which I think is a fun little community event.
Fun little community event.
The
I don't think
Patreon
Emily
goal.
thinks about it like that.
Emily, I love you, and I'm so glad you agreed to have your child as part of our Patreon goals. All right. Charles, please save this podcast for me.
All right. Well, I am going to jump right back where we left off last week. Coda, my dog, if you're not watching live, is being very clingy tonight. A little bit clingy like the first characters that we're going to talk about. Zine, Morala, and Lula Talisola, as these were the last characters that we didn't get to talk about last week. So I'm going to give you a few quotes about them, ask you some questions, and then we will jump into the overarching questions after that. So some quotes, page 181. Zine wished she could just stand there, feeling Lula's fingers around hers, and then let their hands pull their bodies into a hug and take a long breath and sob out all the confusion. Instead, she walked into the makeshift brig and stood in front of the boy she once would have given her life for, then had almost murdered, and now just wanted never to have to think about again. Very, very teenager-like there.
Mm-hmm.
Page 185, Zine is speaking to Crix, the aforementioned boy who was her old childhood best friend and then became a member of the Nile. And Zine says, "You said something to me once," Zine said as he caught his breath, still shaken from his own admission. "When you were trying to get me to run away with you, you said I could stop using the Force and it would go away and we could be normal." She shook her head, suddenly calmer than she felt in weeks, if not months. "But that's what I've been doing my whole life, hoping the power inside me would go away, lessening myself for others, for you." The word came out like a curse, "wishing I was normal. I'm so glad I found people who love me for who I am and not for some version of myself that had to be lesser to make them comfortable." All right. 188. Zine had been expecting Lula to look grief-stricken or desperate, to display almost anything besides the calm, clear-eyed serenity that radiated from her now. But of course, the girl was unstoppable, Zine thought, and that was why she loved her. The truth of it, the sudden certainty, hit her like a punch in the gut. It was undeniable, but she managed to shove away all the complications and possibilities and tragedies that love might entail and just match her friend's smile, that glow. So, Zine and Lula, obviously their story in this book revolved around their relationship, right? But Lula is a Jedi. I'm curious, where do you all see this relationship going? And Eric, I'd like to hear from you as someone who specifically read all the comics, what it meant from your perspective to see these two come together, because it was not everyone had that context.
Yeah, I mean, to start out, there's something we kind of mentioned at the end of last week's show that is so prevalent here. Like, these are unobtrusive, unquestionable, young, romantic, in love lesbians in Star Wars. Like, there is no subtext. There is like, and that's awesome. Like, just to say, first of all, like, there's a lot of been a lot of talk about like the movies, like, oh, there's that kiss and Red Skywalker in the background. Oh, well, they're friends, and like, well, like, no, they're like, they love each other, and it's a beautiful moment, first of all. And I think one of the cool things about High Republic Adventures is seeing Zine have literally a story that's basically like coming out with the Force, like about being like, I wasn't accepted by my friend when he found out that this happened to me. I found a group of people that accepted me for who I was. I fell in love with, like, it is a beautifully told queer parable through the lens of Force sensitivity, which is amazing, and it actually makes
It's clever.
So
I
much
even thought about
sense.
it like that. That's really clever.
Yeah, and I think one of my main takeaway from the two of them in this book is that I think it's just a great love story in the middle of a great adventure story. Like, there were times I remember when I was reading it for review, I was taking notes, and there was I forget which part it was, but I literally wrote in caps lock on my phone, like, just kiss already. Like, there's like, it's that moment of every movie where you're watching the rom-com and you're like, oh my God, just tell her you love her. And you're like, well, our communication got cut off. Like, it was really just great to see it. And I think, to your point, Charles, seeing from issue 1 of the comic to them meeting each other and going through getting to know each other, going into battle each other, going through loss together, and then finally in this one saying, like, I love you and I'm here with you, and wherever my life goes, you're in it and you're a part of it, is kind of just what love is. And I think a lot of us have gone through that, regardless of life situation, of realizing, hey, I love this person, and it scares me a little bit because it's going to change my life a lot, and it's going to alter maybe what I thought I was going to do, but I look at my life without them and it doesn't make sense. And I think in this book, seeing Zine and Lula, the way they think about each other, the way they talk to each other, especially near the end, they've both figured out, like, you know what? This is going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but my future doesn't exist without you. And that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of Zine's sort of kind of, I don't know, sort of in and out relationship with the Jedi Order too is really clever and interesting.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it makes the High Republic Jedi seem interesting in that, like, it's not as committal as it seems in like the prequel era, right?
Mm-hmm. There's
It's
a lot
little
more
more
of that.
chill.
There's a lot more of that in the High Republic. Of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
way seekers and people who are kind
Right.
of on the fringe.
Everybody's just better. Like it's like the better
They're just
days
cooler.
of the Jedi. Yeah, I mean seriously, like I don't know. I'll be interested to see what happens. Like that would really be clever storytelling if the High Republic ties all that up and makes like in like we kind of understand why the Jedi are the way that they are. Like maybe there are some problems with this model of
Yeah.
you know, it's just like the office space. Like instead of having individual cubicles, it's just like it's like an open office concept. So it's what that's what the High Republic Jedi is.
at Hooli.
Open up.
Yeah, it's an open office concept. The manager's door is always open. You know what I'm saying? It's always open.
Yeah.
It's always it's almost like there's more than one category. You're either like in the prequels, you're a Jedi or you're not a Jedi.
You're in,
Sith,
or you're out.
not a Sith. Yeah. So this is like, I mean, there's some gray area there, and I like that. There's a lot more to write about with
It's
that.
interesting for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing of note that Zine kind of thought to herself towards the end of this book, or at least closer to the end of this book, page 268, she says, one thing Zine did know is that she wouldn't let herself become an obstacle in anyone else's path to becoming what they'd always wanted to be. And that meant Zine had to get away, far, far away. A galaxy there, if you will. But the point being, she might be getting in the way of Lula as a Jedi if she were to become a romantic interest. At least that was her concern in this quote. And so we know these two have kind of been pulled together by a lot of events that have happened in the galaxy, but we see that Zine kind of wants to maybe pull away from those things. Now, by the end of the book, she's kind of determined to go and find Lula when she's gone missing, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens if and when they meet back up.
There is a moment in the final issue of High Republic Adventures. We get answers to a lot of these questions, and I'm torn here, guys, because there's a cool thing that happens in that issue that could promote a lot of this good conversation. But it's also a moment where, like, if you experience it organically, it's very special. So I'm not sure where to go right now. So, guys who haven't read the comics, do you think it's worth for me to say and tell people to like skip ahead if they don't want to know, or should we like let people discover it on their own?
I say you give it 5 seconds.
Corey, you're muted.
Spill it.
All right.
I mean, we're pretty far out from the comics being released.
All right. So
yeah.
everyone, skip ahead a couple minutes. Here we go. In the final issue of High Republic Adventures, this current run, Lula Talisola, who has only ever wanted to be a Jedi Knight, right? That's her whole goal. She's offered to be knighted, and she declines because she says, "I'm not
Spoiler
sure.
alert.
I care about Zine so much, and I don't think I'm ready to let go of all that just to devote myself here." So her largest goal, she says, "Nope, I'm not there yet because I still need to figure out my feelings for her." And it's like a really beautiful moment because it's like, yeah, we're just like the most responsible. That's more responsible than any Jedi we saw in the prequels. Let's be real. Like that is
for sure.
that is a level-headed like.
Yeah, Anakin was
moment.
over here like, why am I not a master? Like,
Me and my secret wife.
It's not like a one shot and done deal. Like she can come back after she's. No.
Yeah.
She can come back if she learned something. This kind. I mean, this is like in the very beginning of the book when Atar and Cantum like had that relationship.
Just said that, yeah. Yep, Cantum leaves for a while and figures it out. And Lula doesn't
leaving
leave.
the order for a while. I don't know. I think we'll just kill everybody instead.
Seems legit. Seems fine. But yeah, I think it is a cool, like it is a really beautiful top to bottom like full arc. But and I think one of the things in phase 1 was that a lot, like it ended, and obviously a lot of the arcs were left unfinished because they want us to come back, and the story stuff to go further in phase 3 probably. Excuse me, especially. But this was one that like we had a full story. We saw the meet cute, the evolution of relationship, the sacrifice of personal things you need to do, the coming together in the face of huge turmoil and challenge, and then ending choosing each other and seeing where the future holds. And it's like, dang. Beginning, middle, and end. This is a story that he wanted to tell with these two, and I thought he did it really well.
yeah,
For sure.
Well, on that note, I think it's a good transition into the overarching questions because I think your answer to this, Eric, is already pretty apparent. But you know what struck me about Midnight Horizon is that it's the High Republic novel so far that requires you to be familiar with kind of the most obscure characters from the entirety of phase 1. And I'm curious if you feel like that had an impact on your personal enjoyment, both from the side of if you read everything like you did, Eric, and had all that backstory versus someone more like myself who had not read the High Republic Adventures at all. Like, do you think it impacts your personal enjoyment in a good or a bad way? And do you think it affects the approachability of a novel like this for the general audience?
I want to hear from you guys first.
It depends on what kind of reader you are. So I didn't really have an issue with learning these characters. So the background, I have not read any of the comics. So a couple of these characters I've heard of through talking and chatting with the guys at Youtini. So I didn't know a lot of the characters, know about Ram, but it just made me pay attention more to what I was listening to and what I was reading to, and it helped me get into the story a little bit more and kind of look about the underlying moments of like how important it is to be a Jedi and how important it is not to be a Jedi if you're not ready. Some things like that. But it helped me like pay attention instead of kind of blow through it. Because, by the way, gentlemen, there's probably a piece coming up here in the future, but I am currently listening to Revenge of the Sith, and I can kind of not pay attention a little bit when I'm driving and still understand what's going on. Whereas if it's a brand new book, then I have to pay attention to what is going on and actually get into it more than I would something that, like, say I was building a camper and I was listening to an audiobook, something like that.
Amazing.
Some might argue
Wes, it'll rain tomorrow, so you can be focused. You don't have to drive.
Yeah, and some might argue that novelization is a brand new book. Just saying.
Okay.
Great point. Corey, what about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like you definitely get some value out of kind of knowing where characters are at, and kind of knowing like all the background information, but at the same time, like it doesn't. I don't know. I didn't feel like it took away from it too much, honestly. Like it felt like it was a pretty natural experience, honestly. I mean, like, and I'm not caught up like enough to really understand like where everybody's at, but like I did feel like I had enough background to go into it and still get what I was supposed to out of it,
Totally. Yeah, I think that for me, having been fully caught up, the High Republic Adventures I super enjoyed. I really loved that comic series. But the characters weren't necessarily my favorites objectively. Like I hadn't put them on the level of like Avar Kriss and Loden and Bell and Elza.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing was different for me. And then reading this book, like Cantum Psi, as shown by our draft that I just abysmally lost. Still reeling from that. Like literally elevated Cantum Psi to a top tier character for me. And like seeing like Wreath in this book really catapulted him for me. So I think that being caught up with that definitely let me into the characters quicker, maybe. Like I like Lula came up. I'm like, oh yeah, awesome, Lula, great. Ram came up. Oh yeah, Ram. I've seen him do stuff. Like that was definitely helpful, and I think it made it a quicker realization. But I think the characters themselves were expanded so well in this book. And I mean, it's very thick, as we've talked about before. Like there's a lot of book to expand them in. And I think that expansion was really kind of what put it over the top rather than purely just knowing what was going on beforehand. I think that he did a nice job. Like if you didn't know that Lula and Zine were kind of together in this book, by the first couple pages of their interactions, you got it. Mm-hmm. You get what's going on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it sounds like it really didn't negatively impact anyone's experience. If anything, it positively impacted it. So, hey,
sure.
Props to DJO for making sure that people that didn't read the comics are caught up, and props to all of you that managed to read all those comics. I'm jealous.
Good, man. Lunch break reads. That's what I call them.
Yeah. Well, let's move from familiar characters to a familiar setting, because a ton of this book was on Corellia, guys.
Charles,
Corellia,
what a segue. Look at that.
I've been
practicing. You don't do segues, you liar.
I've been practicing in my mirror every morning. It's exhausting. How did it feel going back to Corellia, a place that we have spent years and years and years reading about, and then seeing it in the High Republic era? Like, did it feel true to what we've seen before?
Man, I Griffin love Corellia, man. Like that's
here it is.
That's where I got, you know?
I know we didn't have any visuals, but it didn't seem to me like Corellia was as dingy and dirty as I was first noticed in, say, like Solo, when it's like all just like parts being like wedged together, and you got, you know, these underlying
dark.
it's
Like
all
pitch
dark.
black, dark.
So
I love that movie. It's dark.
yeah, it seemed like a nicer Corellia, a nicer time on Corellia.
The travel poster Corellia.
Exactly,
Hey,
yeah,
come to
exactly.
Corellia. There's no crime here that you can see.
Like the Imperial March playing in the background. That's just like, oh, I want to join the army.
Yeah, exactly.
Captain
always
Corellia. That'd be great. Yeah.
I've always loved Corellia, like even back to the Legends days. Like I think if you had asked me 15 years ago, and I was like neck deep in Legends, I didn't have a single Star Wars friend, like what my favorite planet was in Star Wars, I might have said Corellia. No kidding, like all that time ago, because Corellia in Legends books is, I mean, I feel like they got it pretty dang right in this book. Like it feels very much like Corellia did he didn't feel quite as dirty as they kind of made it. And Solo makes the entirety of Corellia seem like, it's just gang wars all the time. Everybody's trying to kill each other. And like, that's not how Corellia was always portrayed. And Han Solo's got his hero stripes on his pants. That's never been explained in canon, right? Like that's explained in Legends about Corellia. So, I mean, it's a pretty interesting planet that does tend to make kind of, like roguish type characters, like really free, like they're libertarians. Let's just be clear, they're all libertarians on Corellia. Like that's just the type of people that they all carry guns, to go to eat at Chick-fil-A. Like that's just how it is. All right.
All right, celebration swag. Corellians are just libertarians. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. They all have license plates that are the "Don't step on me" flag. Like that's just how it is. Like, and
I mean, you're not wrong. The last battle, they literally say, "Hey, Corellians, like this is our planet."
That's what I'm saying. They really got it right. I feel like. I mean, it was very, very true to the way the Legends. I'm continually impressed with the amount of how close that these modern authors are able to get this old sort of energy that, like, those folks kind of paved the way to make these types of things happen. So,
Yeah. I'm realizing as I look back on that, you mentioned that, Corey, the Legends books, I'm thinking back to the books about Corellia that I've read, and it's the A.C. Crispin trilogy, it's Most Wanted, and it's Midnight Horizon, and none of those is below a 9.5 for me. Like, I'm realizing that I just love Corellia books. Like, it's a planet that's so rich for storytelling, because I think you're right. It has that ability to be a little clean if it wants, like the Thraken Cell Solos of like the high class, like the city fathers in this book being like the high rich people, all the way down to the slums, literally like the Grindelids, which were so cool. And like Jacob says in the chat, the description of Sphino's family really made it feel like a city that's alive. Like there are so many species and characters, occasionally to the detriment of understanding, as we talked about last week, because there's just so many people. But like, it's such a rich, vibrant place, and I think that's one of the cool things that sometimes gets lost in Star Wars books. We're like, oh, this is a water planet, and we went by a lake and had a chat, and then we flew away. Like Corellia was really dense and full in this book, and I think in every book about Corellia, if there's something about it the authors really latch onto, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. It's one of those planets that feels like a character almost in and of itself, kind of like the Falcon.
Yeah.
Which
and somebody
is built on Corellia. Look at that.
There you go. Not to go completely off the rails a little bit, but I'm following your notes a little bit.
Oh my God,
go,
baby, go.
Somebody that you don't actually have in your character section that I would love to chat about just a minute, who I feel like is a good segue to, is Crash, right? Like she's kind of, like one of the major characters in this book, and like is very true Corellian to me. Like, I mean, she's a natural leader. She is like young and in way over her head. Like she has all this responsibility, even though she's kind of a kid in a lot of ways. So like, I feel like she really like encapsulates like what Corellia believes in and what their values are, like in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. sorry you said that. I just can't. I now cannot get the image of you, Corey, with dyed pink hair at Celebration out of my head.
Oh my god.
And I don't know, $1,300 Patreon goal in 2 months. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Corey dresses like a goth kid. You know, I have a wallet on a chain and
a young
really
kid
baggy
that
shorts.
that starts their own business and then has a bunch of people that work for them. I mean, kind of sounds like somebody I know.
Not paying any of them well enough. You know, yeah, it's just like me. Exactly.
Realizes everything is corrupt and then just goes completely off the grid. Like, yeah.
Setting up fake assassination attempts to better your public image. Yeah, that's Corey.
Yeah.
Hill.
Yeah. I will say I really did like Crash as a character. She was a super interesting character. The whole, I will say, if I have any one small complaint about Crash is that, and I know why they did it. Because it's a young adult book. They had to do it for a young adult book. She's a little young, in my opinion. For the context of the book, the context is that she owns like a bodyguard company that she inherited from her mother, and I really had trouble with like separating reality of imagining like I mean, how old is she? 17, 18, 19?
17, 18,
like
yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, like she's in there. I really had trouble imagining a 17-year-old like getting hired by like 70-year-old politicians to be a bodyguard company. Like the whole bodyguard company idea is really weird and interesting, and like I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest, but it felt a little out of place for me for her to be in charge of this. But again, young adult, it's so hard to get that, you have to meet the age group. So
yeah, I mean, what's
it's also
next?
like an amidala.
Exactly. Are they going to let a 13-year-old woman run a whole planet? I mean, come on.
You got me there.
But I hear what you're saying. It was like Crash is first, as Jacob said, is based on Alyssa Wong, Alice Crash. I forget the actual last name of the character, but one that's rad. Yeah, Ongwa.
yeah.
That your friend literally made a Star Wars character. That's a main character in a book about you. That's rad. But I think Crash does a good job. I agree, Justin. At the start, is a little young, I think, both in age and in temperament. I think she takes a little bit of getting used to, both by reader and by her friends, which I think is interesting. But by the end, when that call goes out to like rally Corellia,
she really comes around.
Like, it becomes a freaking war hero.
The audiobook was a little rough for Crash in the early parts. Wes, I mean, you listened to the audiobook too, didn't you?
Is it a male narrator the whole time?
It is.
Yeah, it's a male narrator, but I mean, I don't think he
was actually pretty good.
Yeah, he was good. I don't think he did a bad job with it, but the dialogue, like, it reads fine. I'll let back and read some of it. It reads fine, but the dialogue doesn't sound fine when you listen to it, right? Like it's very
a hard balance.
It's a hard balance, and like I've said this before on this show, I do not envy the writers that write young adult, because I feel like that is the hardest age group to write for, because you have to have like middle school age dialogue at times, and also adult kind of themes like sex and drinking and violence. Like that all has to be in there to some regard. Like you know what I mean? Like it feels
I've watched Euphoria. That's all in high school, man.
Exactly.
That's all there.
All the YA books are edgy, right? They have to be a little edgy, but like and sometimes the dialogue, reading it as an adult, I'm not in the the market group, right? Like sometimes reading some of the dialogue or hearing some of the dialogue as an adult is a little, I don't know, kitschy maybe is the right word, campy. I don't know. It feels goofy at times. Like just like, oh, we're going over there. Come on, everybody. Like it just feels really, I don't know. It weirds me out. Like
that felt like Dora the Explorer.
That's kind of what it reads like.
We're on Corellia. Can you say Corellia?
And then gets hit in the forehead with a sandwich.
Good.
That's exactly it.
Who's stolen Spheno?
Exactly.
Can you find Spheno?
Yeah, that's how Crash was in the beginning of the book when she was first introduced to our two Jedi characters, right? Like that's how she was first introduced to them.
Oh my god. Yeah. I'm sorry. Now I'm just like, where did Comac go? Can you find Comac?
It wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't. Now I want that desperately.
I know, seriously. By the end of the book, she certainly came around, and maybe that's what we're supposed to see is the coming of age. I mean, it's the classic. Yeah. But I was going to Tosche Station and pick up some power converters. Like, I mean, like come on, like Luke does the same shit. So I know.
And they're the same age in that book, so
yeah, that's true.
That's maybe true. Yeah,
guys, is that just what teenagers are like?
Is that how we were like? No
Maybe-
way.
maybe
Not me.
you're right.
We were mature.
Not
We were
me.
mature, Wes.
We were not like that.
Listen, I would rather I would probably I would probably cut off my fingers before I would watch video footage of teenage me like on a date or something like that. Absolutely not.
The fact that we
Absolutely.
got
Eat
out,
my fingers.
no,
Yeah,
the
no.
fact that we got out of the age just barely of putting every recorded video of ourselves on the internet.
Oh, we barely
Guys,
dodged
I
it.
hope you realize that when we are like 50 or 60, we are going to be feeling that way about this right now.
Our
I hope
celebration
not.
footage.
Somebody
Hope
flagged
not.
this video.
I'm gonna watch me take that 14th tequila shot from the Patreon event and be like, should have done that.
Should have known that.
I'm
Should have
still
done that.
feeling that.
Don't like that.
That's why my skin has a tinge yellow. A tinge.
Oh man.
But yeah, much love for Crash. I hope we see more of her again as time goes on. We're not gonna see a lot of these characters for at least a year. So
Yeah.
And did you did say that Crash is not this is not her original story, right? She's brought up in the comics originally.
she's
In
in
the
the High
annual.
Republic Adventures annual. Yeah, the short story that
Okay,
Daniel
okay,
Jose
it's a
Older
short
writes. It introduces the whole team. So as we said last
Yep.
week, if you need a visual representation, jump onto Comixology. It's either free or cheap for that annual. Short stories from all the authors, but DJOs does have the introduction of Crash.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, speaking of Crash, I want to talk about Starlight Beacon. There's another segue for you.
Whoa, man. Oh, dude.
God. Oh my God, Charles. That was
Bro!
too soon, bro. Too
I'm
soon.
sorry. So I
All
want
right,
to
go
talk
ahead.
about Starlight Beacon and its destruction because even though it wasn't the focal point of this book, it was a big moment. It was a big moment in this part of the High Republic timeline. In this book, we kind of got the indirect experience of it, if you will. All the party goers were watching Starlight Beacon crash live on the Holo News in the middle of their party. And I'm curious as to what y'all thought about experiencing that crash, that destruction of Starlight Beacon from not on board the station. Like, how did it hit you to revisit that from that sort of different perspective?
I thought the idea was clever. The whole masquerade,
Yeah.
that was a super clever writing tool like when they set all that up, like as soon as they said it's a masquerade, I was like, I know where this is going. This is going to be like a James Bond movie. I like this a lot. This is really
Yeah.
I will say, I wish they had spent just a hair more time on it. You know what I mean? Like, I wish that they would have like spent a little. I wish there would have been. I kept expecting the moment of like everybody stops and looks at the screen and like we get a little more reaction from some of the characters and stuff. And it was just like, maybe that's the point. Like maybe they didn't have time to like process it and think about it and grieve because they'd already seen it kind of in the Force at that point, right? So like, I don't know. Maybe that was the point. It was supposed to blur right past it. I think I'm changing my answer now as I'm saying it. Like,
That's what this is
like,
about, man.
Maybe it was
Why we
cool
do
that
it.
they blew right past it. Actually,
It was interesting. I'm so glad that we read Fallen Star before this. I think releasing it in this order was great because I'm glad that the full emotional beat was in the Fallen Star. Because I think that if this was the first time you had realized that was happening in this book, I bet it was cool, but it wasn't full. But it had that like retroactive effect where like I had already experienced those emotions, so it kind of pulled those out of my memory and then added them onto the briefness, like you said, Corey. And this is a weird comparison, I think. But like, follow me on this. It kind of felt a little bit like last year in January when the Capitol got stormed a little bit of like seeing people like, cause I remember where I was and watching this thing happen, just being like, what? And it's kind of and like where no matter what you're doing, everyone kind of freezes and just watches the TV. And it was this moment of like, oh, this is probably that story they will tell later in life of like, oh yeah, I was at that party. And I watched that happen. And to have that experience simultaneously balanced with the Jedi literally, a million souls cried out and we're gone, or whatever Obi-Wan says. Like, it was interesting to see that again in that moment. So all those different reactions in that brief scene and then immediately leading into chaos was just a whirlwind of emotion. And like Justin says, low-key the best scene in the book. It's a hell of a good book and a hell of a good scene. And Stephanie, thank you for getting my Phantom of the Opera reference. You're the best.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to. I mean, they weren't allowed to take in all of that like grieving because they didn't have time because there was this whole like fighting scene and then there was a time when all the Nile came in. They couldn't just sit there
was a
and
Nile
hug
party.
each other, right? Like,
You know what a Nile party is? That's the thing. Once a year, you see that article about frats having those like really horrible politically incorrect parties, and it's like, bruh,
Yeah.
no,
So
like guys, these people had a Nile party. Like, no,
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah, I don't.
was
Who
pretty
thought
messed
that was okay? Like
rich
literally,
people, rich people.
Okay, you know what? You're right. You're right. You got me there.
Well, someone brought up in the chat the actual experience of Starlight being destroyed being the best part of the book. And there were kind of two moments. One was the moment where I think Cantum and Comac first understood something was wrong. That was one moment that really hit hard. And then the later moment was when Starlight actually crashed. And I want to read one quote here from when Cantum and Comac realized something was wrong. It's from page 286. And it says, a song of pure devastation trilled out so suddenly it almost knocked Cantum over. It rose to a sharp keening and then burst, an explosion that rocked the very stars, and then emptiness once again devoured the entirety of a space once filled with laughter, concern, thoughtfulness, love. So that's what the Jedi were feeling on Corellia. And I find that so interesting because you hear, oh, Starlight's been destroyed, and that's the home base of so many Jedi. So you think, oh, the Jedi are gone, right? Like they're decimated. But no, they're not. Like there's still so many scattered around the galaxy, and now they know they have no backup, right? That's what Comac and Cantum were hoping for, was for backup to come to Corellia. And no one's coming. Like you are on your own. And that's kind of the framework that we're going to launch into when we get back to this part of the story.
Even as you describe it, it hits me again, honestly. Like the weight of that is, I mean, it's the classic war story thing, right? Whether it be any World War II or like fantasies, war, whatever war story you're watching, there's always that moment of, they're not coming. We're alone. And it hits in such a way of, the only reason that you had strength was because you knew you'd eventually have support. And when that vanishes, you realize how weak and afraid you are. And I think for a Jedi, that moment of like fear is always the hardest one, right? Like fear is the death of a Jedi, essentially. And feeling that moment for them, you can't even grieve for your friends yet because you're afraid that you're screwed. Was really, it was intense. It was straight up intense.
I think emptiness is used a lot in Star Wars as something as being almost the worst thing there is in the galaxy. So like if there's an emptiness, the Force is not present, so there's nothing that they can pull off from. And then being the ultimate big bad, Palpatine, and because I'm starting to listen to Revenge of the Sith, there was a portion there
pretty
where
good, right?
Yeah. Well, they said that there's a portion in there that said, he was like, we looked at Palpatine and he was expecting to feel anger and revenge and resentment, and I felt nothing. There was nothing there. And I was just like, that means that he has it on lock as the most evil person in the history of the galaxy so far. But
bro, chills again.
I mean,
just from you saying that, oh my god,
is a big theme that's in Star Wars that I've noticed. I mean, from all the way to the High Republic to to the prequels.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
emptiness.
You bring that up. I have to read now this quote from 285 just quickly. The Force sang of stillness, not the gentle stillness of an untouched snowfield. This was a much more sinister, a gaping emptiness where once so much life had thrived, thousands of stories intertwined, and now there was nothing. So that speaks directly towards what you're talking about.
I wish I would have read that before. I would have had something more intelligent to say.
I'm gonna jump on that for a sec, because for those of you that follow me and know me, one of the reasons this week has been hard is because last week we unexpectedly lost my cat Lucy very quickly, and that emptiness is actually an exact description of the worst feeling. It's the feeling that something was there and it's not now. And that's been the hardest part about this week of being in my apartment again with my partner, is that we're doing things and it's like there's something that was there and it's not. And I think that is a feeling for anyone that's experienced loss is very, very hard to describe if you haven't, and very hard to describe if that was your day And I think that's what makes Jedi and the High Republic so wonderful and relatable, is because their entire life is based on connection to everyone. Their best friends, their lovers, their families in the Force and everything. And if you could feel in your soul the moment that a person walked out the door, the moment that a person ignited a lightsaber, and then they were gone forever and you never felt that again, like it would kind of be this kind of sorrow all the time, and then you just got to kind of deal with it. And I think that is what we start to hint at in these moments, is like, all right, it's just empty now, and it can't be filled. I just have to focus on the other things. And I think that you guys nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. That we're not afraid of fire. We're not afraid of destruction necessarily. We're afraid of a void, because that just exists and it feels cold. So to get a little personal and depressing there for a second, yeah, the absence is the hardest thing.
Yeah, and I love the parallelism between Obi-Wan's line in Episode 4, right? Like suddenly millions of voices cried out, and then they were silenced. Like it just kind of get it, right? Like, and this, I really felt those vibes, and when reading this part of the book, is like they were kind of beating all around that idea without saying those exact words, but still that original line captures it beautifully. Is like that's what it is. Suddenly there's life in a place, and Obi-Wan doesn't know how to describe it, right? It's like
it's just, Yoda dropping the staff in Episode 3 as everyone starts dying.
Right.
Kashyyyk, where he just like grabs himself.
Yeah, because they didn't know how else to say it, right? It's not like. It's not like, we just felt the death of thousands of people. That's not what he said. Like he says, it's as if millions of voices just cried out, where suddenly silent, because he doesn't know how else to describe it, right? And it's like,
because how could that be a thing?
Yeah,
how could that even be real?
Yeah, like so many of us. Like, when's
the
last time you were just in silence? You know what I mean? Like, I sleep with white noise on my phone. Like, I have a podcast on when I walk the dog. Like, we have so much of our lives. Just there is stuff, and just to replace that with nothing, it's the most terrifying thing about the Nameless, which you talked about in Fallen Star, is that it doesn't kill you, it doesn't burn you, it empties you.
Yeah,
and there's nothing, and it's like, whoo, go into the real darkest depths of fear in the Star Wars young adult books. Huzzah!
I'm telling you, you got to be edgy to be a YA book.
Yeah, seriously, man, my goodness.
Well, Eric, thanks for sharing that with everybody, because obviously we knew that, and you've been kind of dealing with a lot of that. And I want to kind of counter that, if you will, with a quote from Yoda about younglings, because I think maybe it applies a little bit to what you're talking about, and it kind of leads me into the next thing I'd like to talk about, and that is that Padawan master relationship. It was really emphasized in this book. So Yoda, talking about younglings, says, "No, it is in who they are to us that their wisdom lives. Do the work we must. The lesson of younglings we take on is one of the hardest ones for most Jedi to learn. Indeed, some never do. Detachment," Cantum said. Yoda nodded, serious now. "To let go. Elusive it is, but also always available to us, always there. And again does not mean we have failed, only that we must do it again and again." Cantum knew the truth of those words in their bones. How many times had they managed to let go of doubt, fear, arrogance, jealousy, only to have each tumble back in like nothing had ever happened? Yoda was right, though. Those weren't failures. The struggle, the lesson, really, was simply ongoing. To love is to let go, Yoda said, watching the flames. To be Jedi is to let go. I'm curious about y'all's thoughts on this quote, and I would also like to just hear your overall thoughts on that master relationship, again, that was emphasized in this novel, and what is the master's true role as a Jedi?
So the simple things, cool. One, I think this is bar none some of the best Yoda we've gotten in a long time in this book, which I appreciate so hard.
It's remember reading about Yoda that much, though.
He's not very often.
Right?
It's surprising when you think about one of the most famous Jedi. Not in a lot. Man, it's interesting, right? I think the dark side of attachment, literally, is Anakin, right? It's being attached to something, and because of that attachment to Padme and the inability to let go of a potential future or potential tragedy, it inhibits your ability to do good and think of others and serve the light, rather, right? As the Jedi are supposed to do. And from what I get from this and from this book, and legit from the High Republic, is that it's not about not loving. Like Yoda literally says, to love is to. He's giving a lesson on how to love. It's to let go of the fear of losing love, I think. So that you can love, have compassion, all these things, but the fear of love being lost is what drove Anakin to darkness and is what drove him down the side. It wasn't the love. Nothing Padme did drove Anakin to become Vader, right? Nothing about the love for his children drove Anakin to be Vader. It was that if the fear of loss or the reality of loss drives you away from the ability to do good works because you are so consumed with fear and tragedy and anger, that's when it becomes an issue for Jedi. And I think that's one of the, God, you want to talk about timely stuff, Charles, you nailed it. Like this last week for me has been really hard because it's not the attachment to her that's been hurting. It's been the idea of like, I still have to do things. I still have to love people. I still have to be my best. There's been times this week where I haven't been my best at all. And I have lost that because that attachment made me frustrated that she was gone or frustrated that I couldn't do things. And I think that being a Jedi and being a person, as Star Wars is secretly doing to us all the time, is to love so much that their love in your life makes you better. And the loss doesn't make you a worse person. It makes you sad, but those love lessons that they gave you through those years crafted you into such a great person that you were able to go on in their memory and serve in their memory, even if you stumble now and then. And I think that's where Cantum gets to in their story. They didn't ever let go of the love that they had. They just learned that once it's gone, that's okay, because I'm still a Jedi. And I think in all of this, in our lives, we're going to keep loving, but we will love so much that even when that love is lost or that person is lost, we can still go on in the spirit of the love. It's kind of what this gave me, I guess.
So Yoda says, and then when we grasp, gone again, takes practice, it does. Do you think he's so good at it because he's had so many Padawans, right?
100%.
He's had so many Padawans where he can just build up. I bet do we know who his first Padawan was?
It's interesting because
no, I don't fucking know. I don't know, man.
Hey.
We think we've only ever seen Yoda as the wise and old master. Like even in the High Republic, now that we've gotten a taste of him in this time period, he's still the wise old master that everyone looks up to. But at some point, he wasn't that. Like he became.
He was young and hot. We know. We can say
Yeah.
it. We don't have to be afraid anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think Caitlin and I were talking about this week, and Eric, I'm sorry, I hope this doesn't break you, but
no.
like there is sort of a like this beautiful analogy between Yoda and Padawans and kind of how it is to own and lose a pet is like I saw a quote a couple weeks ago, something like it's very likely that you will have multiple animals in your life, right? Like multiple dogs, multiple cats, but you're going to be the only human they ever have. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like that is such a heavy idea, and that's how Yoda was with Padawans in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
we are what they grow beyond. Like that is
like
the burden of all
Yoda
masters,
had
right?
multiple Padawans, but that was the only master they ever had, right? So I just love this beautiful thing to keep giving Yoda to the Padawans and to the younglings, and this pure relationship between this wise master, and even when even when they're not Padawans anymore, he still is like that grandfather-like figure to it. Like I actually looked up the quotes from The Last Jedi a few moments ago because like the dialogue it's still Yoda has just been fleshed out as such a beautiful character all through Star Wars, and like his final lines in The Last Jedi is like some of the best dialogue, and like I almost teared up reading it a minute ago. It's just so incredibly good. It's just Yoda is just so utterly wise. Like when he says heeded my words not, did you? Pass on what you have learned. Strength, mastery, but weakness, folly, failure also. Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher failure is. Luke, we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters. And it's like, how many times did Yoda learn that damn lesson for him to still be preaching the same things after all these centuries? It's not even years or decades.
No. I mean,
literally centuries.
Think about how distraught, obviously, Obi-Wan was, not to make this about Obi-Wan, for losing Anakin.
Yeah.
Yoda was Dooku's master. I mean, how do you think he felt with that? Was a massive failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I also just realized too? Because Yoda, his whole thing was working with every youngling, right? That's what he wanted to do. Even when he didn't have individual Padawans, he taught every youngling. He was the kindergarten teacher, right?
Yeah.
When Starlight Beacon fell, every single Jedi that died was Yoda's student. When Order 66 happened, every single Jedi who died was Yoda's student.
Oh, I'm gonna throw up.
Like, I mean, and that's the reality. Like he went to exile because he didn't fail once. In his mind, he failed thousands of times in that single day because he didn't protect them. And I think that moment of like to see Yoda have a redemption arc, which is insane to think about. But like with Luke, he goes from teaching every youngling, loses them in Starlight. Every youngling loses them in Order 66. But he still comes back for one more because he believes the Jedi are something worth believing in.
Yeah.
And I think in this book, seriously, some of these flashbacks, I am going to be running campaigns for the Youtinis for scenes of the year with some of these things. Like, they're so good. And all the way up to Yoda's appearance near the end is like, this is the master that no matter how many tragedies befall him, still believes that love of the Padawans and teaching is worth it because he knows what it can bring, and he knows the galaxy needs Jedi and needs people that can love and help like this. And if Yoda, who has by definition, like you said, Charles, lost basically every Padawan he's ever had, will keep doing it, I mean, what choice do the rest of us have?
Yeah,
we got to keep going.
Yoda is the Mr. Feeney of the Jedi. That's what I have
learned
from this conversation.
Dude!
This world reference.
Yes.
That's good.
And another Boy Meets World reference for you. Life's tough, get a helmet. The High Republic is also tough, get a helmet. So, Eric, do you have the outline handy?
Yeah, I do.
Because you mentioned the appearance of Yoda, and I feel like it's such a powerful moment. I'd love to just hear that really quickly before we kind of close with some things. And it's from page 463, and I think you'll do it much more justice than I would.
All right, buddy, I'll try. I'll see what happens here.
No pressure or anything, man.
Yeah, right? All right. Both hands raised, they called on the force with every shred of their being, and then, very suddenly, the weight of it all became light. Almost nothing, as something seemed to give way in the air all around them. Without releasing their grip, Canton blinked into the fog. The Nile reinforcements still sprinted towards them. Comac and Zine still beat back attacks on either side. The remaining fog, all that was left of that foul yellow-gray cloud, was swept suddenly away as if a heavy wind had blown in from the harbor. But there was no wind. All around Canton, warriors looked to either side, confused. There, in the middle of a wide-open area, the last bit of fog cleared to reveal a short, hooded figure standing alone amid all that destruction and death. A bright green lightsaber extended from one hand. The other was raised to the sky. Master Yoda.
Woo! Thank you, Eric. I got chills all over again. The sabbatical is over, baby. Master Yoda is back. And you know, I'm curious, not about what y'all think about Yoda, because you've told me all about that. Not about did this feel true to his character, because you've addressed that. But I want to know, what in the world was he doing on this sabbatical? Because I want to point out this very odd, almost like extraneous detail that was just dropped in at the end of this book. And it was from page 481, where they reference this robed and bandaged individual that Yoda brought back with him. And the quote says, "A little off to the side, that strange hooded figure sat, singing as always. They'd come with Yoda, Scene had realized once everyone had disembarked and settled in at Bay News. The figure never showed their face, never spoke to anyone, just sang a sad little ditty over and over in a raspy whisper. They'll do what they can, they'll do what they must.
Well, I was
So-
definitely asleep during this because I have no narratives whatsoever.
Okay,
Welcome to it,
baby. There are literally like 2 sentences about this person
Wow,
who just
I can't believe you
appeared.
noticed that. Wes, you're usually on the same level with this type of thing. Did you notice this?
Yeah, I mean, I read it, but it just glossed
No,
over.
you're full of
it. I
shit.
knew
You
it was
didn't know
there.
this. You didn't see that. You didn't remember that.
No,
You just
neither.
made this up.
Yeah,
So this is the final moment, or these are the final moments
I had
of
no idea.
the High Republic Phase 1.
Yeah,
And
thank
here
you.
is the last thing that Yoda says on page 44 with respect to, I believe, this bandaged and robed figure. Much to discuss there is. Difficult the way forward will be, but there is a way. There is always a way.
Mhm.
And young Reith has learned, make that way ourselves we must, for it has not been made yet. To do this, though, to forge our path to the future, guided by the secrets of the past we will be. So what are we talking about here, y'all? Like,
Dude.
obviously, this is
Listen,
pure
you're just
conjecture,
You're
but
just like blowing my mind right now. I had no idea
Welcome
this
to
was
the
even in
story.
book. So welcome to the
Yeah.
story for sure.
welcome to the
I don't
show.
know. Welcome to
Yeah.
the show. This must be some kind. Is this a reference to like? I mean, is this going to be some? This has got to be some huge connection to Phase 2. I'm assuming, right?
This is so Jacob in
I
the
would
chat.
think so.
He mentions in the comics Yoda left with Elder Tromac, who's another character, to research something. Right? Not sure that's the same person. We'll find out. The song that they'll do what they can, they do what they must. That's the lullaby that we've heard about the Nameless in
Oh, yeah,
various
yeah.
comics.
Right.
You'll be dust, right? That's the whole thing.
Mhm.
So they are clearly singing about something that has to do with the Nameless. And yeah, this is, I mean, guided by the secrets of the past. The fact that this came out just after we got the reveal that Phase 2 is taken 150 years ago, like, that is 10,000% where we're going. I mean, this has to
Yeah.
be either a scholar
Nameless.
of those
The
past
Nameless
or
are the
it's
big
something about the
bad.
Nameless.
Yeah. So
It's the
Yeah.
real-
remind
that's
us
the
again
real
what the
big bad,
Nameless
right?
are again. Because that's
Well, the Nameless
first
are,
heard
the,
it from, I
are the
guess.
Shriekerai,
Right.
which are the creatures that are essentially disrupting the Jedi's connection
Yeah.
to the Force.
They
Eric.
basically
Please,
are
please with
sucking the
song.
force out of folks, essentially. Like, you're making them empty vessels, husks, essentially, as you
Okay.
will.
They're
So-
husking folks.
They're husking folks. Yeah, I'm very interested. It really, this one felt like a season finale of a show where it's like, the past we will be ba-dum, 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 ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da. And it's like, oh, the next movie. Like, this was
Yeah.
more so than any of the other books, I think, says that whatever the secret is, we have to go back to the past. Not only do the Jedi have to go back to the past and read scrolls, but the readers literally have to go back to the past now. And I think we are, instead of experiencing this knowledge in flashback, which I think they could do, I think we are literally just going to experience this knowledge in present time in those books that take place in the past. I think that's what they're giving us, essentially, are the scrolls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to know. I do want to know how Daniel Jose Older won the bet to be able to bring back Yoda.
Right?
Yeah.
He was like, well, he's on
That-
sabbatical. And they're like, well, what's he doing? He's like, I'll tell you in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was more than a coin flip for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That was,
I mean,
wait, was
come
it
on.
Flip Cup at that first retreat? I think that's what it was.
I wouldn't put that
Drinking
past
game,
DJL.
100%. Yeah, that's right.
So on that note, let's end this. Amidst all this craziness, amidst all this chaos, amidst all this death, there were the light moments. And Corey, you brought up the Reith audio that really, really was impactful for you
Yeah.
when listening to this novel. So I think let's end there before we run through some Easter eggs. I think you pulled some clips here
I did.
for us, right?
Yeah, last week I said that I wanted to play this audio, and I've said multiple times, I think on shows, that like we got to play this audio. It's really good, but this single bit of audio, like from the audiobook, like is one of the most powerful, I feel like, with the music and the sound effects and everything is really, really cool. And there
I
are
can't
two
wait.
different parts to this that I want to kind of get y'all's feedback on, because Eric, you haven't listened to this yet, have you? And Charles,
Nope, I was pure print for this one.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. So the first bit we hear, this is all from like one of the last chapters of the book, and the first is when Reith is kind of coming to like it's like the grief moment where he's like where everything kind of falls apart about like he finally has a moment to think about Starlight and what to do next, and it's really powerful. So let's play that one first.
Reith Silas, Comac said. Reith held up his hands. Wait, what is this? We have to talk about what to do next. Why is everyone just standing around? Reith, Kentum said. We have to do something. Reith was yelling, and he wasn't sure why. Nothing made sense. Not the tragedy of it, not the silence of it. It was all impossible. He didn't have a home. Suddenly, all that calmness he'd felt started slipping away. He'd thought he had at least some of it figured out.
You can hear the panic in
seemed
the
so
narration,
clear a
which I think
few
is a
hours
really nice
before.
touch.
When a Padawan
sure.
laughs, the Force laughs harder, he reminded himself. And then
Great line.
he was laughing. But tears were streaming down his face too, because Starlight was down and so many had died, and nothing would ever be the same. Shh, Zine said, cocooning him out of nowhere, her own tear-stained face landing on his shoulder. I know. A few moments passed with just the crackling embers and the wild hoots and chirps of the swamp. Then Comac again said, Reith Silas. And Reith finally understood. Are you ready? No, Reith wanted to scream. I'll never be ready. Not after this. Not after everything that's happened and whatever is about to. No. Reith shook his head. He'd pictured this moment many times. He used to imagine it happening on Coruscant, surrounded by all the ancient texts of the archive. More recently, of course, he'd envisioned the ceremony on Starlight, his home. He would be surrounded by his friends. He would glow with joy at what he'd achieved. He would
Like
begin
one
the
Jedi
rest
has
of
ever
his
been knighted
life.
like that. Everyone else is on
Starlight
random
was
planets.
gone, and many of his friends were too. All this time, all this fighting, all this death, Reith said, his voice shaky. And I haven't learned anything except how little I know. Yoda made a thoughtful grunting noise.
Sounds like
The
Resident
hardest
Evil.
lesson to learn, this is. One of the most important.
That's the end.
Yeah,
Jeez,
Yeah.
I've learned only how little I know.
I know.
And then
That-
Yoda's
I-
like, that's exactly why you're ready, because you know nothing, Jon Snow.
That music, man, that was
The music did a lot for that scene.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm telling you, like, so one of the reasons I wanted to, a couple of reasons I wanted to kind of highlight this particular thing. So first of all, the narrator, I had to look this up. It's Todd Haberkorn, I think is how you say it. Todd Haberkorn. Let me
okay.
see what else is he's done.
I think he's an
Um,
anime dubs. I feel like I might be misremembering.
I'm
that.
not sure. He on the Wikipedia he's an Imperial pilot in Star Wars Squadrons. That's interesting.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, and
Okay.
he did some voice work for the High Republic Racer Crash Point Tower. I don't think I listened to that one, so I wonder if he did that one, which is pretty
Neither.
interesting.
Oh yeah, he's a big
Is that
anime
right?
dude. I just googled him, and he's
Okay.
done a lot of anime characters.
Not an anime. Yeah, so like I can kind of hear that sort of anime thing, like with Reith, and the characterization of Reith is one of the best I
Yeah.
feel like in the book. So like that, one of the reasons I want to highlight it is because this is one of the first time that I think a lot of listeners will have heard this guy's narration of the book, and it was really good. I thought, like, I
Yeah,
mean,
that was really solid.
we always kind of have to compare everybody to Mark Thompson because he's kind of like the goat of narration, right? But like, there's other folks out there that we got to give chances to kind of shine, right? So he nailed
Yeah.
it. I really did.
Yeah,
This
I
was
didn't
really good. Yeah.
did not have a problem with
No,
with the
me either.
new narration. This is the third narrator I've had in a row because now they're reading Revenge of the Sith for the 9th time today. You have another narrator on that one, so Jonathan Davis. So I was
yeah, also great.
yeah. So I like the variety. The variety it helps because they do the character voices in a different articulation. Is that the right word?
Sure.
I think it works. Sure.
But no,
It's not the worst word.
It helps to break up the monotony. If there's, you read, 13
Yeah.
Star Wars books and it's Mark Thompson every time, you're like, well, I want to hear a different variation
else.
of a woman's voice.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
and
right.
I love
We
that.
have
I
talked
love
about
that version. Yeah, I love that version of Wreath though, especially because I mean I've said it a couple times on both parts that Wreath didn't quite do it for me in Into the Dark too much, but this version of Wreath is good because it sounds like a scared teenager, like the Tashi Station Luke, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But because of the deeds Wreath has done, you can hear, and I think this is very hard and a huge accolade to Todd. You can hear the weight of what has just transpired in Wreath's voice, of like. I'm not ready because I'm still shaken about what just happened because I'm still a kid and I just had to kill a bunch of people and that was very hard. And I think there's an element to that too that we kind of like don't always recognize in Star Wars that should be difficult. That should be scary for a kid and that's okay. And I think that reverence for life and that fear or uncertainty doesn't not make you a Jedi. You know what I mean? And I think that was really well done. Yeah, great pull there, Corey. That was.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I mean, the chills I've gotten in the last hour, y'all, are just insane.
I know, seriously. Yeah, the other thing I really wanted to highlight with that piece is like you said, the music really made it, and there's not a single piece of licensed Star Wars music in this.
It's
not
all
a single
original,
John
right?
Williams. It's all original, and I don't know where they got it. If they had it specially made, or if this is like just kind of royalty free music that fits. Like I don't know how
John
they
Williams
exactly
sucks is what we're saying. Star Wars does not need him. You heard it here first. Corey has said it. We understand.
I'm not even gonna.
Are you sure there's not a single Star Wars piece in there?
There's not a single riff from original Star Wars. I listened hard because as soon as the original music played, I was like, "This is kind of odd. I'm gonna pay attention to this." And like there's not a single piece of licensed Star Wars music. And somebody brought this up in Slack a while back, and I think. Maybe people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think now that I'm looking back, I don't think any of the YA High Republic books have any Star Wars licensed music in them. And a lot of the High Republic books in general have other music that's not Star Wars, not like John Williams Star Wars, but like there's been a lot of really original music lately in some of the audiobooks, which has been cool.
You know what I want to do? Speaking of that, a quick shout out. If you have Spotify, look up Grushkov, which is Grushkov. This artist has put together full albums of completely original instrumentals for Light of the Jedi and The Rising Storm, scene by scene, like a film score.
Wow. Holy smokes.
Kevin Scott has tweeted it out a couple times, but there's like Welcome to Valo is a track. The Cyclor Shipyards is a track. And they're like 8 minutes long, some of these. Like it is a 2-hour album for The Rising Storm. So maybe we can link that out somewhere, but like I want to give a shout out to some because the fans of the High Republic are above and beyond. And you mentioned original music and reminded me of this. This artist is really going above and beyond, making book soundtracks like Shadows of the Empire back in the day. So huge shout out.
Yeah.
That's wild. And we have one other audio bit that I wanted to chat about a little bit, which this is specifically the one that I wanted to play. It's the moment that Wreath is knighted as a Jedi. And like this is one of the most beautiful scenes in any audiobook I've ever listened to. And I had to listen to it twice. It was so good. And I did clip some of it out because I didn't want us to listen to like a solid, let me rephrase that. Eric did not want us to listen to a solid 8-minute clip for like obvious licensing reasons and all that kind of stuff.
Use those Audible credits, y'all.
That's right. Use Audible credits and go listen to it. But at the same time, this particular scene is so beautiful, and I want to listen to it together. So let's play the second one.
I left Starlight with 100 questions, Wreath said. Now Starlight is gone, and all I have are more. Being a Jedi isn't about having the answers, Kentum said. It's about knowing which questions to ask, even if some of those questions span centuries and generations.
If all these masters believe you to be ready,
Yoda said in his warm, raspy voice,
think us mistaken, do you?
Wreath had to smile. He didn't feel ready, no. But somewhere, beyond the fear, beyond his own ego, he knew he was. He stepped forward, looked his master in the eye, and nodded. I am ready, Master Comac. The slightest of smiles creased Comac's tired face. Zine stepped up on one side of Wreath, Ram the other. There was no path. And there was no being lost. As confused as Wreath felt, he knew the Force had guided him to this moment, just as it would guide him to the next one. Yoda stepped up beside Comac, Cantum on his other side.
By the right of the Council,
Yoda said. By the will of the Force, Cantum said. Wreath realized he was crying
Just got
again,
chills.
tears of both joy and sorrow. The Force had led him to this moment. The Force would lead him to the next. There was no being lost. There was no path.
We name thee.
Comac said, reaching out to gently pull up Wreath's Padawan braid. He lit his saber, nodded at the others. Then all three masters together.
Jedi. Knight of the Republic.
Comac finished, slicing through the braid. His saber went out.
I am so proud of you, Wreath.
They hugged, Ram and Zine both patting Wreath on the back.
Damn.
When Wreath stepped away from the hug, there was a lightsaber in his hand. Comac's. What? Wreath managed to say. Comac looked suddenly like a human storm, like all the anxiety and grief he'd been holding back had surfaced now that the ceremony was complete. He glanced around the room, eyes wild.
I can't do this.
Then his gaze locked with Wreath's.
My saber is yours now.
Dude, I'm telling you, man.
God!
Audiobooks, guys.
Oh!
I'm telling you, by only reading them, you're missing out. Holy smokes, the music and the sound effects. We
I
like
gotta
the
start it tomorrow,
lightsaber.
man.
Dude, it moved me to tears in my freaking car in my
Yeah!
driveway after work. I'm just like
Ugh.
sitting there, and I literally, my eyes, I'm like, bro, I'm crying right now. Like, it was incredible. It was incredible. And then that transition, the transition to the lightsaber being in his hands.
Yeah.
And I can't do this. I was just like, what? What is happening?
You know what
It
that
freaked
just
me out.
did
It's
to me,
incredible.
besides literally make me cry live on a streamed recorded episode, is that like, oh my god, dude. Having read it and listening, because I don't reread. A lot of us don't reread because of time. We've said this. Knowing that Comac's about to go, listening to
Yeah,
that makes
know.
it 100 times more intense because you know there's those moments where you're comforting someone and you're like, I'm gonna break, but they need me right now, and I will use every ounce of strength I have to get through this moment for them, and then I can let go. And like you can hear it in Comac's voice of like, we name the Jedi, because he's like, this is the last thing I'm gonna do. This is the last thing that is worth it to me, and it is that important. And I'm like, oh my, like that 10 seconds is the biggest argument I've heard for rereading in years. That was,
Yeah.
oh,
You've never had a-
Seriously.
I've never heard
Wow.
of a knighting ceremony before, or read one.
Yeah.
It's
No,
that
no.
extensive. That's that extensive because that makes it
it's
like,
reverent,
more
it's
important.
reverent.
Yeah, it makes it like more important than the ones that you've heard before. When like, you know, I mean, even Obi-Wan, like Obi-Wan, you are now. Did they even have a ceremony for him?
I don't know. It's like,
I mean,
It sounds
it's
like
on
Qui-Gon
the-
died and now he's
I
a
mean,
Jedi.
we're
I know. It's like
I
on
don't
the.
know.
This
We'll
is like
find
a.
out.
This is like a battlefield promotion too, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
like
right.
like the way that it transitions from those two audio clips together is like Wreath is just going through this discussion of what are we gonna do next? We got to fight. We got to do whatever. And they're like, no, let's take a second because we got to promote you to Jedi Knight before we can get to the next thing. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just seriously one of the
Oh.
most moving experiences I've ever had listening to an audiobook. And this book, like, I really didn't like for the first quarter of it, I didn't even like it. But by the end of it, this
production, dude.
the production and just the writing, it was just an utterly incredible experience. I was shocked that I loved it as much as I did.
And
All
we
right,
did
here on
talk
out,
about
anytime-
that. We did talk about that last week. Sorry, Eric. About
Yeah.
how
No, you're good, man.
how they knighted Wreath, but knowing that so many of the Jedi had died on Starlight, are they knighting him much like military ranks? Whenever one of the officers goes down, somebody is automatically raised up to
Yeah,
that
you gotta-
position to lead.
Right.
Yeah.
And what do the trials
heavy
mean? Like,
thought.
because we get Keeve's trials in the High Republic comic, which are so much different. And I think one of the best things I think they've done in current canon for Jedi lore is make the trials malleable a little more. Like, it's not like you do this, and this trial of this, which is like, fine, there's fun stories to be had in that, but they are malleable. And because being a Jedi is a malleable thing, like, it is a much less specific option. I also think now we need to get that audio however we can without the language. And anytime someone goes to a leadership position at Youtini, we get on a Zoom call, we play that music, and then we all do that because there's no way promotion should happen without that.
I know. I love that. I did love Yoda's little bit in there too in the very beginning. He's like, "What if the masters all agree? Do you think you're gonna argue with them?" Like I loved it. It was such a beautiful, clever little line.
God, I miss watching the prequels now. After this book, I miss this Yoda as I watch the prequels. I'm like, no, he's a cool dad. Like I know him. He's awesome. And I like, and not in a way that he's badly written in the prequels, but like that's how he evolves. And I'm like, oh, it stings. Great call, y'all. Legit. If you don't already, do we still have the Youtini Audible link? Is that still live?
Yeah,
Corey?
yeah, it's for sure. It's still playing. Youtini.com/audible.
Yeah. If you haven't done a Star Wars audiobook yet, I mean, why not have this be your first?
For sure.
That's all I'm
Production
saying.
value
It was a good production.
So good. It's
the High Republic. Honestly, the High Republic books in general are just like really on another level. The fact that a lot of it is original makes it even bigger. Like we've talked a lot on the show about how crazy good the audiobooks are, but something special about these.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that in, Corey, because that was awesome. And I wish that I had the attention span to listen to entire audio clips. But now that you've set the precedent, I can just expect you to bring the best bits to each.
There you go. No, Charles, we don't have time to rewrite your brain chemistry after years of medical school. All right, we'll just do clips.
We do not.
It's fine.
All right. Well, let's absolutely fly through some Easter eggs, connective tissue, etc., and then we'll close this thing out.
Sounds good, man.
Let's do this. Page 3, very early on, death sticks are mentioned because there's nothing more teen angst YA than cigarettes.
Oh, do you want to buy some?
No, that's okay. I want to go home and rethink my life.
There it is.
On page 4, grindelids get their first mention, even though they're subsequently heavily featured. And of course, that's the worm species that were shown in Solo: A Star Wars Story. On the very next page, page 5, we learn that the Garavolt clan is the major Grindelid clan on Corellia. And eventually we learn that Lady Proxima herself was one of them on page 416.
Okay, I legit love that way more than I should have.
It was
I was like, Lady Proxima!
It was the perfect little wink nudge. It wasn't too over the top.
It wasn't over the top at all. And I can't believe we didn't bring this up earlier, but like originally, like when they brought in the what are they, Grindelids?
Grindelids, yeah.
Yeah, Grindelids, when they brought in the scary centipede people from the sewers of Corellia, when they brought in those scary people, I was just like, okay,
the Corellian underground centipedes, yeah.
This is a little goofy, but then when they were freaking violent and they like killed that guy and like ripped him to shreds, I was like, holy crap, what is happening now?
Bit his head off, and then the offspring ate the rest of him.
Dude, okay. Speaking of audiobook production,
what happened?
Listen, speaking of audiobook production, when the Grindelid bit that guy's head, it made the T-Rex crunch sound from Jurassic Park. Like, you know what I'm talking about? When you hear all their bones crunch.
Did it?
I was like, oh my God. Like, it was excessive.
That's awesome.
Yuck.
Continue.
We got some prequel love in this book as well. On page 7, Sabata krill is mentioned to be an Urkit, and that's a species that was first introduced in the Phantom Menace with the pod racer Odie Mandrell.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah.
That's
On
fun.
page 20, it's revealed that Ram invented the word wizard, which is a phrase we first heard in the Phantom Menace as well. On page 25, a Savrip, aka a Mantellian Savrip, is introduced, and that's a reptilian alien species, and that species is well known to Star Wars fans because a Savrip is one of the Dejaric pieces, one of the hollow chess pieces on the board. And we actually got to see one in live action, more or less, in the flesh in this novel. So that was cool.
Nice.
Let's see. On page 41, Shug Drabor is mentioned as overseeing the construction of MPO 1400 Purgle class star cruisers. Of course, that is the same class of ship as the Halcyon.
I have to stop you. I have to stop you there. Shug Drabor also was in a load lifter and saved the day, and I would like to show you a picture of what he looks like. Just like this.
Hey!
It is.
That's Ripley from Aliens. Sorry. Go ahead.
It really is perfect.
I forgot you had that picture.
I'm so glad that came
I
back.
haven't turned my computer off in a week.
On page 72, Gus Tail on one of Corellia's moons is shown, and this moon is actually originally from Legends when it appeared in the Star Wars Tales anthology series in 2005, and it was brought into canon by DJO in the High Republic Adventures just last year.
Awesome.
On page 93, copper grins are mentioned, which is a type of fish known to be native to Corellia. And they've appeared in other canon material set on Corellia, such as Solo Star Wars Story and Most Wanted. But they actually made their first appearance in the background of The Last Jedi, where they're strung up around the caretakers' huts.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
You can see them.
dude.
They're on screen. And on the same page, gar smelts are mentioned, which is another type of fish that actually came from Pablo Hidalgo's Solo A Star Wars Story official guide in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So fish
Wow.
facts.
That's fantastic. So how do you? So what happens when you need a? Is DJO just writing? He's like writing. Like shit. I need a fish.
I mean,
Google
when we
Star
learned-
Wars fish.
It
Yes.
seems to be
Start
what
on the
they
Wook.
like.
Yeah.
They either go to the Wook or they ask Matt Martin. They're like, bro.
Do they have like a folder in their like Google Chrome browser, and it's like when writing Star Wars, and they right click and open all new tabs, and one of those is Wikipedia.
Fish.
It has to be open while you're writing.
Oh, it has to be.
It's
Has
like
to be.
thesaurus, dictionary, Wikipedia. Like that's what you have to have open while
I
you're
would
writing
like to
Star
think.
Wars.
I would like to think they all have Trevor Davies knowledge, and they don't have to actually go back and look at anything. They already know it at
Oh
the
my
top of their
God.
head.
They know
Okay, that'd be
all.
great. That'd be great. I like that. I like that.
Well, we've talked about fish. What about vermin? Because on the very same page, scree rats are mentioned, and scree rats are the
transition.
little
Oh
rodents
my god.
that Han, Kira, and the rest of Lady Proxima's white worms have to capture and cook up into their breakfast. Yuck.
That's disgusting.
On page 106, Corsac
Word
is
kill.
mentioned, aka the Corellian Security Force. And
Oh
these
my
folks are
God.
basically the local police force on Corellia that are
Corsac!
heavily featured in Legends. Corey, do you know who one of the most famous members of Corsac was?
Yes, of course I freaking know who one of those famous
who-
Corsac
and who is
officer
that?
is. It's Corin Horn, baby. The original
sir.
Corsac officers. They're the worst.
That's
The
right.
star of one of Corey's most recommended Star Wars standalone novels.
It
I
is-
For
Jedi.
sure. Yeah, that is
That is not exactly what I said, but yes.
that is going down in the record book.
Oh man.
All right. On page 114, Master Obertuck is mentioned, and he's a Parwan Jedi who features in the Eye of the Storm comic. I won't say any more than that, but if you know, you know.
Absolutely right.
If you know, you know.
On page 124, warts are mentioned, and these are frog-like creatures that are known to be kept by Jabba the Hutt for pest control in his palace on Tatooine. And they first appeared in Return of the Jedi, but nowadays you can actually go to Oga's Cantina in Galaxy's Edge and see an animatronic wart above the bar.
It's really cool.
Disgusting.
It's really cool, guys. We'll see you there in
That's
May.
disgusting.
On page 127 and 128, Crash says, yes, I waited till the adults were gone because I deal with enough already at work. And all they do is underestimate you until you prove yourself smarter than them and then act surprised that what you've been saying all along is true. And that is the most YA sentence that's ever been written.
Man, that makes so many kids
Yes.
just go against their parents' wishes for that
Yeah.
entire
As
time
well they
reading
should.
it.
As well they should.
That
On
is
page-
funny.
Yes. Page 132, Zine says the Force was with her. She was one with it. And of course, it's a nice callback to Cheer It from Rogue One. But we've heard it a lot through the High Republic.
That's true.
On page 147, several Anzellans are shown, including Shug Drabor, and he is actually a member of Babu Frick's species. So I don't know if that's what y'all were
Whoa,
picking.
I did not.
So those are Anzellans.
I did not catch that at all. Holy smokes.
Yeah. On page
The Halcyon
149
is
Listen,
ready.
there are too many aliens now in Star Wars. Like when you're reading on Kindle, like you can click on words and it'll take you to the dictionary. Like if you want to read about the words,
Yeah.
I need this connected
Yeah.
to Wikipedia, so I can
Go
just literally
blank,
click
blank.
and it'll it'll open it.
The fact that I didn't Google Svino's species at the beginning, because I usually Google, but I was on a plane at the time when I was reading the beginning of Midnight Horizon, so I had airplane mode on, so I couldn't Google the race, and then it isn't mentioned
new.
later, so I completely forgot. Yeah.
It's
Then I found
Tamar,
out.
and it's new entirely. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
no shade, guys. We read every Star Wars book that comes out. No shade in Googling Wikipedia for what they look like.
Seriously, all the time.
I don't know how much more Star Wars obscure knowledge I could fit into my brain. Like, we read all the books and talk about it every single Monday night, and I literally miss all of these details.
Corey,
so.
I hate to tell you this, but we're still going.
I know, man. We know nothing in the grand scheme of things. It's crazy.
But they gave us a panel anyway.
That's right. Shh, don't say that out loud. Experts, I mean. That's what we are. We're experts.
Yes, there it is. On page 159, the Scarlet Skull cult is mentioned, described as the most feared assassin squad in the sector, made up entirely of children and teenagers. But to me, it sounded like a bad tribute band for the Blue Oyster Cult.
That's super fun. Also, shout out to Scarlet Skull Cult. If you follow DJO on Twitter, as you should, he's our social butterfly of the year from last year. He retweets a lot of fan art stuff, and there was a fan art, I think, last week or the week before, of Wreath and Ram in their Scarlet Skull
Nice.
face paint. So it's a good time. It's a good time.
On page 183, we have this quote. They'd both grown up hearing the same horror stories about Force users. To hear the elders tell it, people like her could commit all kinds of twisted magic, from turning people into brain-dead warriors to raising the dead. So shout out to Ben Solo.
Okay.
Because that is not untrue. On page 188, Cham Cham, Zine's pet, is mentioned. And I guess unless you've read the High Republic Adventures, you've likely never seen or heard of this little bat-like creature, because that's where the entire species first appeared.
Yep. A lot of good animals in that series. I feel like the High Republic era has gone really big on the new animal species. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah. On page 189, Nar Shaddaa, the Smuggler's Moon, is mentioned, which is cool. Obviously there's so much information out there about that.
So much.
You can't have a Corellia story without Nar Shaddaa.
Yes.
I don't know if Nar Shaddaa was invented for the KOTOR games. Maybe it was.
It's in the Crispin trilogy.
Is it? Yeah, that was what that.
But
then,
visually, I think you're right.
Yeah. I would say an acceptable. I really want them to do the Underbelly of Coruscant one day in some kind of live action media, but and I don't think they're ever going to, because Coruscant is weirdly untouchable by live action media for some reason.
Thank you. It is weirdly like that.
I don't know why it's like that, but it does seem to be like that. But I would say a very close secondary fallback for a really interesting Underworld series on Nar Shaddaa. Good choice. Good choice.
Alden Ehrenreich has a contract somewhere. I know we're not going to make Solo 2. Put him on Nar Shaddaa. Just do young Han Solo on Nar Shaddaa and Corellia. You already have the sets.
Yeah,
they're already there. Just make the thing.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
On
plan.
page 210.
Cool stuff.
On page 210, Crash says, the promise of a politician is trash, as the old Corellian saying goes. And I felt like that's a Corey comment.
Yeah, that is a Corey comment.
Trash quite a bit.
I know. I say things are trash all the time. That's fantastic.
Trash.
Oh man.
Corey, seriously, I'm telling you, pink hair, buddy. It's gonna be temporary. It's gonna be great.
I'm not a libertarian. I feel like I need to say that after this episode.
But you have a bunch of books.
Do what?
But you have a bunch of books.
So on what?
Anymore.
Being a libertarian?
Libertarian.
Anymore, I sold all that.
A libertarian.
No.
Okay.
No,
I'm God.
Okay, I get it now.
No, I don't.
All right, Wes, you have to pay to get into our party at Celebration now. Only you.
You're the
Only
only
you.
one.
I'm just gonna sit outside. Hey, looks like y'all are having fun over there. Hey. Like, where did you get that
He's
shirt?
wearing that little stupid hat that Watto's wearing in episode 2. That's what he's
Hey,
wearing.
Aren't you Wes? Aren't you on like one of the main podcasts? Yeah, but they won't let me in.
No, he says, well, I used to be.
Oh God, we're never gonna get through these. Sorry,
Okay.
Charles.
All right, on page 212, Arcona, which is a species, is mentioned, and yet again, that's a species of one of the pod racers from the Phantom Menace, Rats Tyrell. He was the one whose wife and kids are sitting in the stands. That are briefly
What?
shown.
That doesn't narrow it down. Who the hell is that?
No, for sure. They show little
Tyrell,
baby,
yeah.
little dinosaurs. You got to go watch.
Charles, we're getting pod racing in the High Republic.
there's so
They're
many.
seeding it in every book.
I know.
Is it the little green dinosaur guy? Is that who he is with the flat neck or whatever?
Yeah, he does look kind of like a dinosaur.
And
Yeah.
he goes, "Mah." You know, that guy.
Okay, I got it. That was
And
it. So I needed.
Kevin, I know you're
of that-
watching. Kevin, just pod race. Just do it.
Speaking of that, on page 258, Crufila is regarding the bond brack she was about to eat. She says, I was just playing with it. And Demas, who is like the police officer, nodded agreeably and said, and I'm a world-class pod racer. Yet again, a pod racing reference. Who do I need to pay? Or
Come
bribe
on.
or whatever.
Please,
Street
if they ever
racers.
listen, after all the hype that we've built, if they ever bring pod racing in anything, we're gonna have like a freaking 4-part pod racing series on the show.
Oh my God.
I'm going to do a spin-off podcast. I hate to tell you that.
Wait. Charles, it's a podcast.
Yes, it is.
It's pod about pods.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Come on,
Excellent.
mine was way
It
better
would be
than
the
that.
most. It would
Mine
be the
Now
most
it's
famous
podcasting.
podcast of all time. It would just be called the podcast.
I think that's actually a Star Wars podcast. Now it's
Is it?
podcasting. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty
It
sure that's
is, yeah.
actually a real
Oh, it's
podcast.
It's a
podcast.
network.
I mean,
right.
it should be.
Yeah.
We're not that clever. We're
Okay.
Someone else has also thought of this before.
We're just like
All
hundreds
right.
of Star Wars podcast. Thanks for listening to this one, everyone.
Yes, Especially when we
Like,
cannot
was
get
there
through
one?
part 2 of
Let
a
me
round
switch-
table.
Let me
with
change
3
channels real
hours.
quick.
All right, on page 272, the Tino Village sector is shown, which was the district of Coronet City first mentioned in Chuck Wendig's Aftermath Life Debt.
Let's go.
Very good. Very good. I'm
On
sure they didn't
page-
tell him about that one either.
Probably.
They didn't pay him a goddamn dime.
On
Couldn't
page
leave that alone, could you?
292, the
God.
Mimbanese are mentioned as aiding the Nile on Corellia, and they're, of course, natives of the mud planet Mimban, where Han Solo had to fight for the Empire in the beginning of Solo's Star Wars story.
The mud.
Where are the invaders?
Great movie.
On page 292, Corvella and Tyrina, cities on Corellia, are both name dropped and both first appeared in the video game Star Wars Galaxy. So shout out to Freddie.
Oh my God, he got it. Freddie, read a canon novel. It's worth. You won't.
Then on page 301, Leppy, the species, is mentioned, the same species as Jackson the rabbit. So shout out to Jose now. And I'm starting to think DJO might secretly be a member of the Youtini Patreon. I don't know.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that.
Page 325, we have this quote. Well, an elderly woman in a lime green gown and elaborately tubed helmet said triumphantly. Then she chuckled because apparently everything was a funny party joke. I always thought that initiation into the Scarlet Skull cult required members to remove their own tongues. Ram leaned uncomfortably close and made his voice a harsh whisper. What makes you think this is my tongue? That was by far my favorite moment of the entire book. I kid you not. That caught me
Yeah, that was-
so off guard.
It did me too. Yeah, because he's trying to figure out humor. Like, is it a joke or is
Yeah.
he being like in character right now? This is fantastic.
Pretty good.
Dude, it's absolutely how kids learn how to tell jokes too. Because like, I'm like, bro, too far. No,
It's cringy.
No,
Yes.
no, buddy.
Oh man. Okay. Page 340. Canton pulled out their comlink, tried once more to raise the Jedi Temple, the main Republic communication nexus, anyone at all, once more to no avail. They'd gotten through once or twice, but each time had been placed on a wait tone by a frantic and irritated operator. And this really blew my mind because I was trying to imagine, like when you call the pharmacy and it's like, hello, you've reached the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. If you'd like to speak to the council, press 1 or say council now. And you're like, council. And it's like, thanks, transferring you to billing. And you're like, no, what the? Like,
That happens all the time. Oh my
Exactly.
God. Freaking CVS. Great. Great phones. Great phones. Walgreens is a nightmare to try to call as a
Agent.
doctor.
Agent.
Listen to
Agent.
40 seconds of things. It's
Zero.
like, I am a physician. I am a doctor. Let me in. That's literally what it's like every single time.
Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, our wait times may be longer than usual. Thank you for your
Yes.
patience.
oh my gosh.
just
If you're trying to schedule a
screaming at the
COVID
phone.
test, and you're like, no, skip. How do I skip?
What is a normal wait time? Because every business I've called in the last 2 years has wait times longer than usual. So nope, usual has changed. Sorry.
Sure. This is the usual now.
I'm
All right.
PTSD. Moving on.
All right. Page 422, Reith literally says, you will not board this ship. And it felt very much like a Gandalf, you shall not pass.
Phenomenal. Yes. Yes.
We always have to have a
Good
Lord of
line.
the Rings moment. And then lastly, I just want this to be known. I don't have a quote. I don't have anything else. I just want it to be known that Yoda delivers 8 hippopotamus babies, more or less, and makes s'mores in the same chapter of this book.
That's
So-
true. That's
There you go.
true.
Right.
That weird little offshoot scene
Happabore
where like
babies.
he like has to get that guy off the roof or whatever that happens. I
Yeah,
can't
the
remember exactly what
Happabore.
happened.
That's the haplobore, which I
Yeah,
think
okay.
of as a
There's
hippopotamus.
a
Which
hippopotamus
is
on
the
the roof,
giant
you
beast
know.
from Force Awakens where Finn is trying to drink the water. That's a
Yeah, yeah.
Happabore. It's a fully grown Happabore.
Okay, that was funny. The guy was on the roof, and Yoda's like, "What are we gonna do about this? This is
Yep.
all the day life of Master Yoda, all
Yeah.
great and wise." Like, it's just
Yeah.
like hilarious.
Now, Charles, I got one more Easter egg I want to add in from the mouth of DJO himself.
Go ahead.
As we were reading this, I was chatting with him, and he said there's one character. It's a member of Descaro's crew, and I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm ashamed I forget the name, but there is a member of Descaro's crew that begins with a P. That is, if you remember from Ray Carson's Most Wanted, a few years back in the streets in the slums of Corellia, Han and Kira meet like a golem-esque creature in the sewers that they befriend. They bring him food, and people think he's all weird and stuff, and he like helps them out. He is in Descaro's crew during this book,
Oh,
so he
wow.
has made it through multiple eras. So that's
Wow.
a nice little Easter egg
That's
for.
clever.
And if you haven't read Most Wanted by Ray Carson, that's another, I mentioned it earlier, great
So good.
Corellian book. But DJO took a lot of vibes from Most Wanted and put it in this book. So if you liked this, that is a great book to read while you're waiting for your next new release.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We have spent entirely too much time tonight.
2 hour
No such
episode,
thing.
guys.
So
No such
let's
thing,
go,
man.
Let's go around, close this roundtable like we
These
do
used to be
all
three
of them.
parts.
I want you to re-rate this book from 1 to 10, and whether you change your score or not, tell us why by giving us any final thoughts. So, Corey, I think you went first. You're
Yeah.
up again.
I don't remember what I gave this book. Somebody can tell me in the chat maybe if you guys remember, but I think it was in the 8 something. I'm pretty sure. I feel like that was kind of how I felt at the original, at the onset of all this. But I'm gonna raise the score. I had to freaking raise the score, man. Like, and listen, I don't know if it's because like just hearing everybody's opinions, like what this is that what this show is? We're just opinions. I don't like that. Like whatever. I don't know. Maybe hearing everybody. I don't know if it's just like hearing everybody's opinions makes my opinion of the book higher. I don't think that's really what it is. I think it's just
Talking with your
I
friends.
just like hanging out and with you guys and talking about Star Wars, man. Like it just makes the books better. And like, you know, you got to get out there and in some kind of community and do that. And maybe this is that for you. Like if you're a listener, maybe we're your Star Wars friends that you never met. Come meet us at Celebration at our booth that we got, our panel that we got.
Yep.
You know,
No
But,
hugging
like-
is a rule technically for right now, but meet us outside. We'll figure it out.
that's right. That's right.
Catch us outside.
That's right. But like I got a lot more out of this now after talking about it. Like I was way more emotional about this than I thought I was going to be. And the audio stuff was incredible and the Yoda stuff was incredible and the book took a little while to get rolling, but once it got rolling, man, it really nailed it. And like I think DJO has really got potential to be one of the greats, like for real. Like I mean
Straight
up
up.
there with Zahn and Gray and these other folks that have just done incredible things, and he's certainly getting there. And I think I'm going to bump this up to a solid 9 out
Awesome.
of 10. Like I think it
Nice.
was fun, and I feel happy inside about it, and I can see myself genuinely recommending this book to a lot of people. Like even if you haven't read all the comics and stuff, like
Yeah.
I think it worked well,
Yeah. Especially that audio. My goodness, man. That is
dude. The audio production was very good.
Yeah.
To have an unknown narrator, totally new music, it was good. Really good. The audio production, I think, is like a 9.9 out of 10. Seriously.
Yeah. For real.
Seriously, it was very, very good.
All right. So Corey bumps the score up. Eric, what do you think?
So I rated 9.7, which is obviously super high, even for me. I'm gonna be a little sappy on this one. I'm gonna bump it up 0.1. I'm gonna go to 9.8 in memory of my cat, because this tonight's show legitimately, in all seriousness, every week this show makes my life better. That has been a constant. Talking to you guys, hanging out with y'all in the chat, like does a lot. But talking through subliminally what this book was kind of able to teach us about loss and life is, I think, really going to help me get to the next week and to the next show. And that's worth 0.1 to me. I think this is a book that meant a lot to me in the moment. I loved reading it. And I think it is one of those Star Wars books that, like, for all of us, the best Star Wars affects how we live our lives and affects how we get through the days. And having this conversation with y'all is giving me a boost for 7 more days. And then we'll do the next one. And we'll do the next one. And it's going to help me through a really, really hard time in my life. And I am so thankful that we do a thing where we get to read things like this and love things like this that did this for me. So, in memory of Lucy, happily 9.8.
Rock on, man. That's awesome. Wes.
All right, Wes, off all that.
8.2, it was fine. Anyway.
I think
I
started out.
I've never even liked it.
I started out with an 8.7, and I'm gonna keep it at an 8.7. But there's a couple parts that I liked in the beginning before we even started. And then there's other parts that I liked, and there's other parts I didn't like. So it kind of balanced itself out. But the one thing that really got me about this book was Yoda. Like just our conversation about how he has had so many Padawans, and having so many Padawans has helped him learn and to be able to pass on all that knowledge to the other Jedi to teach their Padawans the same thing, because they're not going to be able to do it because they can't grow that old, right? So there's only like a few of those species that can be that and have that kind of longevity to where they can have multiple Padawans to keep learning from all of that. And then the knighting of Wreath. I mean, when we just got into reading about Wreath and Into the Dark, you were like, it's just a young kid coming of age, just wanted to be all about the books, and then ends up like teleporting to a different planet and then coming back and saving somebody and then all of a sudden now he's helping to kind of mentor Ram a little bit. And then, I mean, this is definitely like a journey for him, a coming of age. And then I think it's very humble of him at the end when he was just like, what do you mean we're gonna, like, what are we all sitting around for? Like, we're here to help, right? Didn't he think about himself one bit, but everybody else was thinking about him. So I thought that was a really nice touch that DJO put that in that book. So not gonna raise it, but I'm gonna keep it at an 8.7. It did take a little bit longer for me to get into, but I mean, those distinct pieces have a high 8 for me is good.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you, Wes, real quick before you go, Charles, that made me think, I don't know, because I don't know how marketing goes. I hope that someday we get Master Silas, Master Zettifar, and Master Telesola just leading the Jedi. Because if these books are any indication, those kids, it's kind of how I feel about the world, right? Like, those kids are going to lead into a great, great future. And I hope we get it.
Yeah. Whew. We may well. I will go last. I was the low baller. I gave this book a 7.9, I think, in the intro, and I'm going to bump it up into the 8s because I think it definitely deserves it. I'm going to say 8.1 for me. I think the highs were super high. I kind of accept, like I said in the intro, part of the missing points on this 10-point scale are my fault for not, reading the High Republic Adventures comics that I'm sure would have improved this experience for me overall. But there were still some little goofy things that I talked about. Some of the tonal things that just kind of pulled my score down a little bit. And I have to mention the guy coming out of the trap door and being like, haha, I'm Respryler. And then the next page is like, I'm not Respryler. It's me, no more trauma. I was like, who is Respryler? Incredible. That got me. But no, I mean, all the things y'all said about why this book works and why it actually is a great experience and a great way to end phase 1, technically, kind of, at least in terms of the novels, I agree with. So really solid book. Excited to see what DJO does next. And I'm sure we'll spend lots of time talking about that too. So on that note, Eric, take us home, buddy.
All right, man. Let's also not forget that Kamek Vitus kicked a guy's hand into a tank before blowing him up. All right, everyone.
He forgot his hand.
He forgot his hand.
Yes.
What an episode. What a week for us here at Youtini. And you know what? Can't wait for the next one. Because, my friends, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Living Force. If you support us on Patreon, thank you so much. Again, you are the driving force behind everything that's coming at Star Wars Celebration. If you haven't joined us yet, head over to patreon.com/Youtini for all the awesome extras you can find there. A special thank you goes out to OK Endar, Brian Dooley, Earl Q, Patrick Ortiz and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Matt Billington, Elizabeth Cloutier, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Eric Eilerson, complaining about the Cowboys. Corey is at Doc Star Wars MD, Charles is at C. Hankel, and Wes is at Boss West. A special thank you to Matt Davenport, our amazing editor who does not get weeks off. Ryan, our graphic designer extraordinaire, and Wes, our producer and community manager. Thanks to Corey, Charles, and Wes for potting with me tonight. Thanks to all of you for tuning in however you do. And as always, may the Force be with you.